All right, good evening, everyone. I call to order tonight's meeting of the Temecula Traffic Safety Commission on May 23rd, and it is 6 o'clock. We'll begin the meeting tonight with a flag salute by Commissioner Richardson.
If you'd all please rise, face the flag, and join me in saying, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Secretary, may we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Ackerman,
Here.
Carter,
Here.
Maddox,
Here?
Richardson,
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Thank you.
Great, and do we have any public comment this evening?
We have
No public comments.
All right. So we'll move on to the consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one roll call vote, and there will be no discussion of these items unless members of the commission request specific items to be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. Item number 1, approve action minutes of April 25th, 2024. And I did have one minor correction or edit I'd like to suggest on this. The one item that we voted on, let's see here, it was business item number 3. I believe that motion was by Commissioner Carter as opposed to myself. So can we note that and still pass
Yeah,
the minutes?
Yeah, we can note that.
Great. Then I would move that we approve the minutes.
Second with the friendly amendment.
Great.
Commissioner Ackerman,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Richardson,
Abstain.
Sullivan.
Was absent?
Aye.
All right, very good. So that passes, and we will move on to commission business. I'm assuming we still have no public comment.
No public comments.
All right, then I will skip the reading of the rules, and we will take item number 2, Walcott Lane and Seville Street traffic calming. And may we have the staff report, please?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. This presentation is for traffic calming on the intersection of Walcott Lane and Seville Street. So in February of this year, staff received a complaint from the Vineyard Community HOA Board. It was regarding excessive speeding on Walcott Lane and some difficulty they were having exiting the development. HOA requested staff to review the intersection, possibly install an all-way stop control, or some other traffic calming measures to help reduce excessive speeding and aid in their exiting of the property. So based on this request, staff performed a corridor review of Walcott Lane. And just a little background on Walcott Lane and Seville Street. Walcott Lane's a 40-foot wide rural collector. It has about 1,600 ADT. The posted speed limit is 45 miles per hour. And the 85th percentile speeds that we were able to tabulate were between 43 and 47 miles per hour. Seville Street is a private residential driveway. It's a gated entryway. There's no posted speed limit on that street since it is a private drive. And we have about 150 ADT at that intersection. So as part of the corridor review, staff reviewed speed data, vehicle volume data, and line of sight for vehicles exiting Seville Street. So based off the data that we collected and reviewed, staff went over a few traffic calming measures that we would think we would consider at this location. And some of those traffic calming measures that we were considering were an all-way stop control, radar speed display signs or VCOM signs, and some signing and striping improvements. So first staff reviewed the data and considered the all-way stop control at the intersection. But based on the information that we were able to review, which is the volume data, the collision history, and the roadway characteristics, we felt that an all-way stop was not feasible at this location. The minimum vehicular volume, was just one of our traffic signal, or our always stop control warrants, was really low. We only had, like I mentioned before, 1,600 ADT on Walcott Lane, and Seville Street was only 150 throughout the day. For the collision history, we did a 5-year run on that, and there were no accidents found. And it did not meet the roadway characteristic warrant as well. Next, staff considered the installation of our radar speed display signs, which we've deployed at other locations where we have speeding issues. However, based on the 85th percentile speeds that we obtained, which were between 43 and 48, we felt that those were close enough to the posted 45-mile-per-hour speed limit, so there wasn't really a excessive speeding issue that we found. Also, with the limited volumes that we have on Walcott Lane, we felt that radar speed display signs were not going to be a big benefit in the area. So staff also reviewed line of sight for the exiting vehicles, since that was one of the issues that the HOA board had brought up to our attention. However, during the review, we did find that the sight visibility for that intersection was adequate. For a 45-mile-per-hour posted speed limit, usually you want about 360 feet of unobstructed line of sight. Looking north along Walcott Lane, we calculated about 425 feet, and looking south was about 370. You can actually see a little bit more, but since there is a vertical curve there, it does limit that slightly. Staff reviewed the line of sight issue, but we also took into account that the community actually uses this location for overflow parking from their community, so they do park out on Walcott Lane. And when they do so, it does limit that line of sight exiting the driveway. So we feel that the best way to help with that situation is to restrict parking near the actual exit driveway. So we're proposing to install or paint a red curb 100 feet on the north side of the intersection, or on the south side, sorry, that's a typo, and 75 on the north side. That was just based on site field review and the assumption of the cars that are parking along that driveway. Another item that we are considering installing there are some advanced warning signs of the intersection. There isn't anything posted there now, and since it is at the top of that vertical curve, we feel that it will aid with just giving a little bit of additional notice of the upcoming intersection. So staff thinks that adding those advanced warnings to warn approaching motorists of the intersecting street will help aid the residents. So with that, staff's recommendation is that the commission direct staff to implement a red curb and advanced warning signs to improve visibility at the intersection of Walcott Lane and Seville Street. And I can open it up to any questions you have.
Great. Any questions down that side?
Question and a comment. I guess you cleared up one of my questions because I don't drive through there that often to notice. When I went there to look at it a couple of times, I never saw anybody parked on Walcott. Now that you explained it, it's overflow, and I can see they only have a few inside by the picture because I didn't have access to get in. But while I'm sitting there, are the homeowners or the city responsible for the trees on the south side? Because it looks like the trees are the issue that block your vision.
Yeah, and when we first reviewed it, we got the complaint in February. When we first reviewed it, those trees hadn't
bloomed
come up yet.
Yeah.
But when I was out there earlier this week, I did notice that as well. So that's something we can coordinate with the HOA if it's their responsibility. If not, then we can coordinate with our staff to go out there and trim those, or maybe even remove a couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I went out there today and had a look, and I don't know who would be parking that close to the entrance, where would they possibly be going was my first question. But I do agree to the north especially, where the road comes up. I was getting ready to make a left to head back south there, and there was a bus coming that I literally couldn't see the top of it till it was pretty close.
Yeah.
And that's a tall vehicle. So I do think anything we can do there to help. And I actually like the addition of the T signs there to let the traffic that might not be paying attention be alerted is a good feature as well. So I like that.
Yeah, and most of the parking that we've seen there is in the evening, and that community is actually, I believe they're trying to improve on-site to add more parking, because they just have overflow parking at night because they don't have limited parking on-site.
Very good.
No, they can. Yeah. Oh, no, because I think most of those are just fire access driveways, so they're limited in width. So they wouldn't be allowed to park on there. So I believe when I talked to the HOA board member, she was telling me that they're trying actively to add more parking stalls on site. Yeah, it has to be in the garage, yeah, or marked stalls, yeah.
I was going to ask about the trees too, so I'm glad we got that one cleared up. I'm just curious, having grown up out here, actually lived where I would have to take that road all the time to get to Chaparral. This is before Butterfield went through, so familiar before this community was there. And I know then it was a pretty heavily traveled street for that reason. But now with Butterfield in play and the other pass through or pass around kind of on that the city's putting in, are we going to look at possibly adjusting that speed limit on that road to maybe help address this as well? Or are we pretty much set at 45? I know there's some legal considerations, some rules we have to follow that I don't remember exactly, but I know you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, we have to follow whatever the survey comes back at, but with the recent assembly bills that have passed, we do have a little bit of flexibility to, reduce it if we can find some factors that adhere to that assembly bill. So it's something we could definitely take a look at once that survey comes up again. But at this time, I mean, I drove through there a few times, and I mean, it seemed like most people were driving at a reasonable speed, and it's a real quiet road right now. Most of the times I was out there.
Right. Yeah, and I think if we could probably justify maybe if it did go down to 40 or something like that, because that would encourage people to go take the larger artery of
Yeah.
Butterfield.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Two-part follow-up to Commissioner Ackerman's comments there. First, do we have the same kinds of restrictions on posting an advisory speed? And then second, with the site distance being 370 feet, would we even need an advisory speed, or is 45 miles per hour, that's an adequate distance to stop approaching the intersection?
I can check on the advisory speed. We typically don't add those, but I could definitely look into that. As far as the site distance, I mean, I know it's pretty close to the limit of the 45 mile per hour. But it will be aided, I think, with the red curb to get even more site distance. Because if you do actually inch out a little bit further, then you could see a lot further down. But when we do the site distance, we have to do it from 10 feet back from curb face. Mm-hmm. So that usually is what limits the number that we get. So I think you should be able to see a little bit further than that.
Okay. Any more questions, comments? Yeah.
Just as an interesting side note, thinking about this problem where you've got a very low ADT coming out onto, let's call it a more heavily traveled, faster road, reminds me when my company was doing some work in Minnesota on farm roads and trying to put technology in where there was very heavy fog, and you had a similar situation, trucks on a major two-lane highway and cars trying to enter that highway with fog being the consideration. They actually eventually put some kind of a detection, I think it was loops that would light signs to warn everybody if someone was coming on the other approach. It's just a side note that systems like that have been used in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, it's something we can consider as well, even the advanced warning signs, having the lighted ones with the blinking lights on them. Chairman Maddox mentioned, the advisory speeds. I mean, they won't be enforceable, but it's something we can always put underneath that sign. So it's something we can definitely consider.
Well, if there are no further comments, then I would entertain a motion.
I'll second.
Commissioner Ackerman,
Aye.
Carter,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Sullivan.
Aye.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And then we are on to number 3, the Citywide Communications System Master Plan. And may we have the report for that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This presentation is in regards to the completion of the final draft of our citywide communication system master plan. So this presentation will just cover a general aspect of the communication master plan. It is a pretty robust document. It's got a ton of information on it. So I'm gonna try to give you guys, not get too technical on it, try to give you a good summary on it. So some of the items on this were to develop a master plan goal, all the master plan goals for the city, master plan document summary, and then a master plan key recommendations, and implementation phasing and prioritization plan. And that's what I'll try to be presenting and giving you some more detail on in this report. So here's the communication master plan overview, with a few questions on there. What is the communication master plan? And so the citywide communication system master plan provides a comprehensive plan to deploy modern fiber communication throughout the city and provide infrastructure for not only traffic signal, but any facilities that need communication for PD, fire, or some of our parks, that security cameras, items like that. And it's a good way to provide a high-speed communication network that is secure and has a good foundation. Why is it needed? The city's current communication network is about 20 years old. It's built to legacy standards that require substantial upgrades. And to build an intelligent traffic system that promotes increased road safety, shorter commute times, and a healthy environment for economic and sustainable growth. And it's a much-needed document to further our network. So what is the goal? The goal is to guide the city's existing and future investment in fiber optic communications, intelligent transportation systems technology, and it's also to ensure current and future communication system needs and objectives are realized in a systematic and sustainable way. What are the main takeaways of the master plan? Main takeaways are to provide recommendations for future projects, our current and future needs, to establish a good communication system throughout the city. Like I mentioned before, it's pretty deficient right now. We're limited in what we can provide communication access to. So the main takeaway of this master plan is to provide a document that will guide us in getting to a future build out. So development of the master plan. At the onset of the project, our consultant met with the Public Works team to develop goals for the master plan. And this was an important step in laying out the groundwork that would be contained in this report. The following goals guided the development of the master plan document. One of them, to evaluate our existing communication system and identify our deficiencies. Identify the current and future communication system needs in coordination with some of our stakeholders. Leverage and build upon existing communication system infrastructure, review existing and future projects to leverage construction funds, evaluate equipment technology trends, identify key recommendations for design, implementation, and maintenance of an efficient citywide network, and develop a plan for a phased communication system implementation plan. So these are the sections that are broken down in the report. Start with the existing conditions assessment, followed by the needs assessment, capital improvement section, technology trends, recommendations, and then the implementation, phasing, and prioritization plan. And I'll go through all these sections with a little more description. So first was the existing conditions assessment, and our consultant worked on assessing the city's existing communication network, just so that we can see what devices are currently connected, where our deficiencies are in our fiber system. They performed a review of all of our as-builts, all of our equipment inventories, performed significant field reviews of all of our fiber infrastructure and all our devices, network devices, and also worked with our IT department on checking how all that system and data comes back into our city. That was followed by the needs assessment. This provides a detailed assessment of the city's communication system needs. This included stakeholder outreach with not only Public Works, but also our IT department on priorities and future needs for fiber communication. It determined a lot of our gaps in our actual infrastructure right now, and summarized how the master plan is achieving at establishing these city goals and initiatives that we're hoping to implement at our future build-out. Next session was our capital improvements, and this just reviewed any of our future city projects in hopes of leveraging them for upgrading communication systems. Any project that our capital improvement department has, we're looking to leverage and hopefully get as much communication work done as part of that, and use some of that funding hopefully to fill some of the gaps that I mentioned before that exist in our existing network. Next section was the technology trends. This just goes over the current industry technology trends that some of the other cities are already using. And it's just to, keep our city moving forward with any items that are coming up. And so hopefully we can create a good interconnected environment for all communication needs throughout the city. Included in that review was a review of smart mobility, smart infrastructure, and cybersecurity. Smart mobility, for example, we have the parking project that, our parking structures right now are on a software, but I know our planning department's working on a parking for Old Town, monitoring that, which would help all residents when they come into town. Smart infrastructure, example of that is our traffic signals, connecting all our controllers, all our emergency preemption equipment, getting data back from that is critical for us knowing when any of that stuff goes down. And cybersecurity, in coordination with our IT department, setting up a completely separate traffic server and documenting a way to get all that data back in a secure manner. Recommendation section. Recommendations for establishing and maintaining an efficient communication network capable of serving all cities' current and future needs. Key qualities to consider on that were, like I mentioned before, security, reliability, and redundancy. And a big part of redundancy is setting up a good network topology, and properly sizing our fiber optics so that we can meet all the demands that come in the future. Some hub networking, which would improve the ring network on our fiber system. So if any location goes down, you have a different route for all the data to keep coming back. Another item that was part of that was separating the network systems for Public Works and IT, since we have different needs. This would keep all the traffic and Public Works data on a separate fiber system, and keep all the IT more secure stuff like cameras, items that are coming to and from facilities on a separate fiber system. And finally, the report goes into the implementation, phasing, and prioritization plan. This is broken down into 3 phases. Phase 1 would be the immediate upgrades, which is a 1 to 3 year plan. Phase 2 would be near-term upgrades, which falls in the 4 to 6 year. And then phase 3 would be the citywide build-out, which we're hoping would be in the 7 to 10 year. And quick little snippet there in the slide is the order of magnitude costs, and this is just what we're estimating right now would be the cost estimate for each one of those phases. So phase 1 would be improvements in expanding our connectivity to traffic signals along major and secondary arterials. That would be the focus of that. Focus more towards getting our fiber optic ring topology. Phase 2 would be more towards, and you can see in the projects of the report, if you have a chance to read it, it's more about upgrading our hub networks and upgrading our fiber, the amount of fiber that we have, and filling a lot of our existing gaps that we have, because we do have several gaps within the existing fiber we have right now. And then finally in phase 3, it's full build out, hopefully upgrading all of our fiber citywide to the ultimate number, which is, I believe, 288 strands to be divided half with IT and half with Public Works. So with that, the recommendation is just for the commission to receive and file this citywide communication system master plan report, and I can open it up to any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. Let's start down that side.
I had a few questions. Are grants part of what's funding this? And if so, is there a grant strategy kind of as part of the plan to tell how we're going to go after these available funds?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't grant funded to create the report, but a big part of us creating this report is in hopes of using it to be able to submit for federal grants or state grants. I think this would be a huge aid in us year by year, knowing the projects and having them listed out of what our 1 to 3 year needs are, 4 to 6 year needs are. So when we do apply for these grants, we kind of have an idea of the projects we want to pursue. But it's also a good document to supplement the LRSP that we have and kind of use that as, as leverage to get some of these funds.
Yeah, just I always like to see kind of the strategy. If we're chasing grants, what's our approach going to be in the plan? Yeah. Is there criteria for prioritization of the things? How do we tell what's the number 1 priority versus the number 5 priority, so that when someone comes to us and says, why isn't my thing first, we can show them a criteria that was used to come up with the priority list?
Yeah, in the last chapter, the implementation and prioritization plan, it breaks it down into specific projects and in the order of projects in each phase. So we went through the whole system, and we kind of set out the ones that we feel are the most important, just to our network, most of our failure points, I would say. And those are the ones that we were prioritizing in phase 1. And then from there, we can start building out. I mean, the phase 2 and phase 3 also prioritize projects, but those could be interchangeable if we had an issue somewhere.
Yeah, I know it needs change, and I don't know if phase 2, you're going to be looking at things and saying, is the priority still the same as we're getting into the phase 2 years now? Yeah. Final question I had was, you mentioned the cybersecurity, and I'm always glad to see that. And is this cross-referenced in any way with the hazard mitigation plan? Is it the LHMP, David? We've seen reports to this commission on the hazard plan, which also mentions cyber. We just want to make sure those two sources mesh and cross-reference where applicable.
Well, I could get some more information on that. The IT department, we've been working really closely with them on this.
Yeah.
So most of those guidelines would be through IT, since they operate and maintain the traffic server, which is where all this data is going to be coming back to initially. But I could definitely look into that and see if it's part of that plan.
Good, thank you. That's it.
I just have a question. You mentioned that the current system is a legacy system, and I'm not technologically astute, so I'm assuming legacy means it's limited by the hardware of the time?
It's a combination of things. Currently, we have very limited fiber strands. I think our biggest trunk line is only 24 strands of fiber. Most of our signals used to communicate through copper and analog modems. So we didn't get as much data as we could, just because they couldn't process it fast enough. So the speed of fiber is going to be real beneficial to all the data we're trying to pull back. But we just don't have enough infrastructure right now. So, and the equipment that's out there right now, what was out there before was just old.
All right, thank you for the thorough report, and I have to send my thanks to Nick as well. Hope he's feeling better. I sent him a long list of questions earlier in the week, so he gave me clarity on that. Not going to ambush you with anything too technical tonight. Yeah, I just wanted to say this is an amazing plan. I think both in terms of operational resilience and the capacity and flexibility that's built into it for growth and future applications. I think it's going to be the envy of all the cities around us, and now we just have to worry about how to get it funded. I guess, the traffic signal timing coordination program, I think, is a really strong opening argument to getting this thing kickstarted, and hope it sails through City Council smoothly.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions, comments? Then we will receive and file. Thank you. On to division reports, and I believe we have California Highway Patrol. Good evening.
Good evening. So for services provided, we had 16 child safety seats installed, 7 traffic safety presentations, and 10 community booths. And for anyone interested, tomorrow we're actually having a Coffee with a Cop event at the Starbucks on Temecula Parkway and Meadows Parkway between about 7:30 in the morning and 11:30. So feel free to drop by and say hi. For our enforcement activity, continued on a good trend. We had 910 citations issued, 303 verbal warnings, a total of 1,389 total enforcement contacts. We have a special enforcement detail in French Valley scheduled for June 17th, so I'll be excited to. The last one we did out there was a couple months ago, very successful, about 100 citations that we wrote in about a 4-hour period. So we're hoping for similar results in June. This weekend we have our special enforcement. We'll have some special enforcement details over Memorial Day weekend, especially on Monday. So please be careful if you're out on the freeways. They call it an all hands on deck. So basically, if no one's on vacation, everyone's going to be working that day. There's no days off granted. So it should be a good time. Last year was a great time, and we really were able to make an impact. For DUI arrests, so we had 58 DUI arrests for the month of April, and then this time last year we had 51, so continuing on an upward trend. The DUI crashes is a typo there, it's not 98. But we have been on that trend, whereas about a year ago we were at about 50% of our crashes, or DUI arrests were out of crashes, and right now we're staying pretty consistent at about 25% of them. So still on a good trend with that. Total of traffic collisions, 93 non-injury, 41 injury. We did have one fatality, and as of the end of April, we had a total of 4 fatalities for year to date. And to kind of put that in context, we had 30 last year total for 2023, so we're trying to keep that number down. Total collisions about 135, which I think is actually still pretty good. We generally average about 100 to 150, but even with all the construction that we have going on the 15 freeway, still able to keep it down to 135. Our one fatality was on SR 371 at Wilson Valley, and it was a solo vehicle rollover. And that's all I have. And I'll open up to any questions.
Hey, not a question, I just want to ask you to pass along to your officers that are coming in on Memorial Day, sacrificing that time with their family to keep us safe, how much we appreciate it.
Cool. Definitely, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for joining us tonight. All right, on to the director's report.
Okay, so we have 3 items. We want to do a little reminder of our State of the City on Thursday next week. So I'm looking forward to having you all there. Be Thursday morning. And then TCSD, our Community Services Department, is putting the offer out there for July 4th. If the Traffic Commission would like to enter some type of float where you're all together, you know, they've done this previously for commissions. Just checking to see what the interest level would be. It could be a vehicle, could be a float, whatever, you know, it should be decorated though, but just wanted to gauge interest.
The only thing I can throw on that for me personally is I'm going to be out of town on the 4th of July, so
Okay.
I support whatever theme the other 4 decide.
Yeah, well, don't want to decorate it all myself, but no, I always love going to that event. Happy to participate in any way we can. Maybe combine efforts with other commissions as well. Really open to anything, but yeah, I'll be there.
Okay. You would participate, Skip?
Yeah, I'd participate. I mean, I want to be part of the group. I don't know what our theme or how we would do it.
Okay.
Anything like that, so.
Okay. I'll pass along your thoughts then.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and then the next item I wanted to let you guys know, some of you already know, maybe you've seen it, that Pat Thomas is going to retire. He's retiring July 11th, and so he will be leaving us here at the city. They are planning to do some type of recognition at the July 9th meeting because that's his last meeting. So if you would like to come that night, you know, you could certainly submit comment if you want to speak or just to wish him well because he'll be around before and after the meeting. Just wanted to let you know that. So Pat is moving on. So. No, he had moved to San Clemente a year ago, and so he's been making that commute, and he had always targeted this year, and so he did finally give his exact date, and so, yeah, he's July 11th, so, yeah. So just wanted to make sure you were aware.
All right, and assuming everything goes well at next city council meeting, does that mean you'll be taking over the director position soon?
Yeah, Aaron already sent out an email. He's offered me the Public Works Director position. I accepted, and so I'll be effective July 12th, the day after. So
Wonderful. Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then in that same notice, just so you're aware, Matt Peters was appointed Community Development Director, and Luke is transitioning full-time, Luke Watson is transitioning full-time up to the City Manager's office. So, couple changes, couple organizational changes there.
That's excellent. All right.
Thank you.
Okay, on to commissioner reports. Anybody? Oh, yeah.
This is something I've asked the Ron to put on an agenda for next month. It's I used to work with TREDS at UCSD before the pandemic on distracted driving. This pretty much explains it all. I don't want to butcher it, so I met with her today, and she requested to do a presentation for the Traffic Commission. And it's something, it's gathering information for a grant that they got through the Federal Motor Carrier Administration. And what it does is it details distracted drivers of commercial vehicles, seatbelt, driver, and it can do all kinds of things. And it's just gathering information, but I just wanted to give you a heads up on what's going to be presented next month.
Great, I appreciate that. All right, and then for my comments, I just wanted to note that we had the groundbreaking, I guess you call it, for the Margarita Road undercrossing this morning. It's part of the, really a critical link in the Santa Gertrudis Creek Trail. It's part of the overall Temecula Loop Trail, and had great public attendance. I think it's going to make that crossing a lot safer, and in a good way. It's also, linking up our neighborhoods and making Temecula feel just a little bit smaller too. So, just wanted to give my thanks to our Public Works team, Media Services, TCSD, Hike Bike Temecula, everyone who had a hand in keeping that project going and putting together the event this morning. All right, with that, hope to see you all, a week from now at State of the City with Mayor Stu. And our next meeting will be Thursday, June 27th, right here at 6 o'clock. Until then, we are adjourned.